In this video, we're going to discuss a river that caught on fire, and it was publicized across the whole country, and this pollution event in 1969 raised the public's awareness to water pollution and the general degradation of our environment, leading to major reform in the 1970s. This river was called the Cuyahoga River, and this was one of the biggest and most notable pollution events of the 1960s. This is the Earth Science Classroom. The Cuyahoga River is located in northeastern Ohio, and Ohio is in the Midwest of America and also is part of the Rust Belt, in addition to Indiana to the west, Michigan to the northwest, Pennsylvania to the east, and West Virginia to the southeast. And this river also drains into Lake Erie, which is one of the Great Lakes of North America. Now, Ohio is the center for the Rust Belt, which means that there is an area of industrial decline from previous decades and the 20th century, where Ohio played a major role in America's industrialization. In more detail, the four counties in question are the Cuyahoga County, which is where you find Cleveland and the mouth and the point of drainage from the river into Lake Erie. You have Summit County, which includes the city of Akron, Portage County, and Geauga County, in which you find the source of the Cuyahoga River. And this river makes a very peculiar, very distinctive U-bend in its course, going from source all the way through to the mouth in Cleveland. When discussing any pollution case study, you first have to understand and appreciate that the pollution or the pollutants or the concentration or the type that you're looking at in any of these case studies is going to be directly involved with humans and human activity, because the environment is generally damaged and harmed and influenced by humans, and this subject is to analyze the effect of humans on the environment. Now, in these pollution case studies that are usually disasters and very obvious human error and human cause, the pollutants have to come from somewhere. Now, in this case, the Cuyahoga River, Cleveland and Akron and the northeastern part of Ohio was a hub for industries. It was part of the industrialization of America, and Cleveland was one of the first cities to become heavily industrialized, with various factories and various materials being produced in that city. And the river flowing through the city is gonna be an easy avenue to get rid of any waste, any byproducts that these factories produce, because back before any kind of legislation, any kind of federal acts and federal laws governing the environmental protection, governing any protection of the environment, humans were very quick to discard their waste into a water source, like a river, a lake, a pond, or an ocean. And this river, the Cuyahoga, flowed straight through Cleveland and was a focal point for any accumulation of waste. During the 1800s, Cleveland grew increasingly powerful and industrial on the banks of Lake Erie, with this large river, the Cuyahoga, flowing straight through it and having access with trade, commerce, and transportation in the American interior, linking up with rivers like Mississippi, the Missouri, the Ohio, to open up this large industrialization of the Midwest, and access to Lake Erie was very, very important. So important that John D. Rockefeller chose Cleveland to be the first headquarters of his Standard Oil Company in 1870. The Cuyahoga River has been subject to high levels of water pollution for over 100 years before the fire of 1969. So for a river to catch on fire, you have to have substantial amount and volume of pollution in one location. and have the pollutants be flammable in order to catch on fire. Now, this was an amazing news article in Time magazine, which allowed the American public to really grasp how polluted this river had become in Ohio and raised the public's awareness to the harm to the environment that we are doing. However, the local people in Cleveland were not too fussed because they were very used to seeing the river burn, which is very surprising, but understandable given the situation. This river has had no laws, no regulations, and has been a dumping ground for heavy industry like the rubber industry, the oil industry, the steel and iron industry for over 100 years. And people just accepted this river pollution to be part of the whole system of industry and the economy, and allowing this area of Ohio and this part of the Midwest of America to become industrialized. The river was just part of industrialization, where the pollution was a natural byproduct. So people didn't really take too much interest until the final fire, so to speak, in 1969, because a year earlier, in 1968, Cleveland appointed its first African-American mayor, Mayor Stokes. And Stokes took a hard stance on the pollution of the Cuyahoga River and pollution in general, and took the event of 1969 as a way to promote and raise awareness for the environment in Washington, D.C., and pushed Congress to make reforms and stronger legislation and regulation on water pollution and pollution in general, not just for Ohio and his city and his river, the Cuyahoga, but for all cities and all rivers across the whole country. And he remains one of the most influential people in that movement towards environmental protection going into the 1970s. The Cuyahoga River has been subject to high levels of pollution for over 100 years due to the heavy industry in both Akron and Cleveland and flowing into Lake Erie. And this river was part of the whole process of industrialization and the immense accumulation of contaminants and pollutants that built up over this time, culminated in the fire of 1969, June 22nd, where reports say a spark from a train passing over a bridge across the river caused the pollution to ignite. And this short fire led to the mass media publications, and into the 1970s, the formation of the EPA and other federal acts like the Clean Water Act of 1972, and into the 70s and 80s and 90s and the 21st century, both Ohio and both Cleveland and the EPA have put into place various restoration plans and remediation plans for the Cuyahoga River in order to regain its health, the fish and wildlife, the quality for leisure, recreation for humans, and also for Cleveland to regain their river that flows right through their city center. Various plans include the removal of the Gorge Dam near Akron, which was used to have power in the area through hydroelectric power from 1913 to 1958. This has been removed because the reservoir behind it had large amounts of contaminated sediment that had to be removed in order to maintain the health of the river and allow the river to flow as normal down to Lake Erie. So 100 miles of this river, the lower course, has extensive plans for continued restoration going through currently and into the next couple of decades. In conclusion, the Cuyahoga River in Ohio stands as a symbol for water pollution in the United States, and also a symbol for how the U.S. can take action through public awareness, through Congress, through regulations, and through the actions of people like Mayor Stokes of Cleveland, and how they can change the environment if there is enough effort put behind the movement. The river was continuously polluted, heavily polluted for over 100 years, and the fire in 1969 was not the worst, but the last fire that occurred. there were many other far more devastating river fires on the Cuyahoga prior to 1969, dating back to the 1860s, due to the increase in industry. However, this river is an example of how, with concentrated environmental focus and cleanup programs and remediation, a river and its watershed, its banks and its wildlife can come back to the area and become healthier, become higher quality. The river recently has won various awards for its water quality and the ability to bring back native fish and wildlife to the river and restoring the stream banks and the watershed. This is the Earth Science Classroom. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe, like, and share. And if you want more content and videos on Earth Science, please check out my channel.